Hey everybody, it's Jessica. Welcome back for another memory keeping video. And this week I am super excited to share with you the week that I got to see My Chemical Romance with my husband in San Francisco. And what better kit to use for that, or what better art to use for that, honestly, than Kitnish Jess's I'm a Fake art. This is the Scribble Prints Co. mini kit version. It was one of the few shops left carrying this art because it is several years old. I just haven't had the opportunity to use it, but I had to use it for this since I know Jess is a fellow fan of My Chemical Romance. As you can clearly see, one of the t-shirts drawn in this art says My Kidnish Romance to kind of incorporate that. And so yeah, I just got the mini kit version because I wasn't sure when else I would really use this art, and I had like just enough stickers to make it through the week. I love this full box that I'm putting in the upper left-hand corner. In the window of this venue, it says, "Destroy negative energy with the power of music." And I don't know if that's a quote from a song or something like that, but I do think that really encapsulated how I felt about going to a couple of shows this summer. I am not the biggest fan of summer, if I'm being entirely honest, and I do have some struggles with my mental health during that time, but going to these shows really uplifted me and helped me feel better about that. So something I'm going to do a little bit differently with this week as well as my next plan with me is I'm just going to give you kind of like a brief overview of the week and then mostly talk about like the set list and what went on at the concerts, because that's really way more interesting than anything else I could possibly talk about. You are going to see me color block this kit, and I will have an extender on Saturday, so that's all I'm going to say about the base, other than I also incorporated pretty much every single piece of deco, both at the top with the date covers, but also along the bottom over the bottom washi with the weekend banner and all that type of stuff. So Monday of this week, July 14th, pretty standard day, just taking care of like exercise and filming and all that type of stuff. If you're new here, I am a college professor on summer break, so that's why you're not seeing like work stuff in these plans right now. And then my husband surprised me with some orange roses on Monday because I've just been feeling kind of down. And so that was very sweet of him to bring those home, and they brought some color into the house. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, just kind of more of the same. I was in a really sad mood on Wednesday, and I don't 100% know why, other than like my cycle was here, so I was in pain and all of that, but I was just not having a good time. So I did have a phone call with my husband during his lunch break, and I ended up going to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal, and it brought me an inordinate amount of joy getting this Happy Meal because they were doing the Lil McDonald's promotion for the Happy Meal toys. And so how they do that, if you haven't gotten one of these Happy Meals, so there's the regular Happy Meal box, right? And then your toy is in a smaller version of the cardboard Happy Meal box. And then the toy that I got was the mini Happy Meal with the hamburger, which is my go-to order, is a hamburger Happy Meal at McDonald's. So I just got such a laugh out of it. It was like a nesting doll situation of a Happy Meal within a Happy Meal within a Happy Meal, and that kind of brightened my mood a little bit on Wednesday. So that was the funny note for this week, I guess. Thursday, I did a couple of job applications, and I booked a camping trip for the fall, hoping that we can actually go on that one, because I did book a camping trip last spring and we ended up having to cancel that one because it was pouring rain and there's just no way we could have done it, but I'm hoping this one will work out. Friday, I woke up to some bad news locally with regards to immigration. I'm not going to get into it, but it was very sad to wake up to that. And then I did finish reading An Abundance of Catherines by John Green, which is a very like 2006 book, but it's cute. I kind of liked it. And I just wasn't feeling good on Friday evening. I just felt really insecure. Not really sure why. And then Saturday was the big concert day. I'll go into that in so much depth. I literally wrote like an outline of points and printed out them as well as the set list because I am so enthused about this, and I have become really obsessed with My Chemical Romance after this concert, which is kind of how I am after concerts. It was just so much fun, but we'll talk all about that. In the morning, I did tune in for Kitnish Jess's live stream, and that was fun because we got to talk about how I was going to the concert, and there were other MCR fans in the chat as well. So that was really funny. And I didn't know anything about the concert, like, concept. Like, we'll get into that in a little bit. Before going to the show, my husband had sent me like a couple of promos, but like I didn't really pay attention that much. We were mostly going because my husband's been a big fan of theirs since high school, probably, if not sooner and or earlier in life. And I was just kind of along for the ride. But like I knew some of their music, but I didn't know that much. And then I realized after the show, I'm like, I actually know more of their music than I thought I did. I just didn't know it was them because, like, I've just heard it playing in the car when my husband's driving and things like that. But anyway, yeah, so it was fun to chat with people on the live stream. And then I did my nails while I was watching the live stream, did my makeup, and then we drove out to San Francisco. It probably took us like 3 hours to get out there because of traffic. We're in Sacramento, for context, if you're new here. And it was just such a fun time, but we'll talk about that more later. Sunday, I forgot to mark that I was like on this weird adrenaline high because I was really tired, but just so stoked after the concert. But most of what I marked on Sunday was just like sleeping in, having a lazy day, picking tomatoes in the garden, all that type of stuff. So that's like an overview of the week. I'm going to put in a couple of habit trackers for journaling and flossing, and then the weekly checklist you're going to see is for my weekly dinners. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is go through my overall notes, my little outline of how Saturday went, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit more about specific points from the set list. I am really excited to film this video, and at the same time I'm like nervous that I'm gonna forget to include something, but if we forget something, we forget something. It's fine. So that's the base. How cute. I love that scene on Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, like I said, this was my husband's first time seeing My Chemical Romance, and I thought he had seen them before, but I guess I misunderstood. My husband has gone to a lot of shows, but a lot of them have been with his parents, so they're like older rock groups that he's seen a lot of. And so I was surprised. I learned this week, I'm like, wait, you haven't seen them before? He's like, no. And he had intended to see them in 2020 when they got back together and were doing their reunion tour. But then, of course, 2020 happened, and it got rescheduled for like 2 years later. And then I think it was like on a random weeknight or something, and he was working a job where I guess he either couldn't get he was doing a new job in 2022, so he wouldn't have really been able to take time off. And it's funny because he worked in LA and the show was definitely in LA, but it was in a totally different part of LA that he wouldn't have been able to make it to. So this was really his first opportunity to go for real. And yeah, this is gonna be a little bit of like a PG-13, TV-14 maybe, because we're on YouTube. Plan with me, just for language, because it is My Chemical Romance. It is Gerard Way. So if you're watching with kids or something, maybe they don't need to watch this one, because there are gonna be some language things said that are not kid appropriate, although that's up to you. But yeah, so like I said, we went to San Francisco. We went to Oracle Park, which is the San Francisco Giants ballpark. I hadn't been there since like 2017, and the last time I was there was definitely for a ball game. Love that venue. It overlooks the water, so that's fun. It's very pretty, I think, and it was outdoors, of course. And we were there for My Chemical Romance, and it was a revival of their Black Parade tour, but with a bit of a different theme than the original. So originally, I think the theme was just like the band is supposed to be a dead marching band. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the Black Parade is a concept album that's supposed to follow like a whole storyline with between all of the songs. And the storyline is basically coping with an untimely death. So the main character is dying throughout this whole process and very bitter about it, very angry about it, but eventually, like, I think comes to terms with it towards the end. So the original Black Parade tour back in, I don't know, 2007, I was not paying attention at that point. I was in very early high school at that point, and I was not listening to My Chemical Romance at the time. The original theme was like the Black Parade is a dead marching band performing these songs, I guess, I think. New theme, 2025, is this like Slavic dictatorship situation. Let me explain to the best of my ability. So I guess the band has now been revived from being dead, question mark, and they are playing for the Grand Immortal Dictator. I think by force, like he is either doing this for his own entertainment or to have keep people in control. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. The tour is still ongoing. People have their theories about like what is going to happen as the shows progress. We'll see how it plays out. They've played like 5 shows so far, and I think they have about 8 or 9 left in the North America tour, so we shall see. But yes, they made up their own special language that vaguely looks kind of Slavic for this, and there were lots of like very silly but controlling rules listed before the show started. My favorite personally, I think it was like rule number 3 was don't throw hair, whatever that's supposed to mean. And another one of my favorites was like, you can only sing along to the songs if you don't actually know the words to the songs, which as someone who has a hard time mishearing My Chemical Romance lyrics, like there's still songs I'm learning, I'm like, oh, that's not the line. I thought that was a fun rule. And then of course there was a rule about like you have to have fun, like having fun is mandatory. Enjoy yourself. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, it seems like the band is basically being forced to sing and entertain in order to uphold this grand immortal dictator. And at our show, at least, because we were the second show in the tour, they started in Seattle and then came to San Francisco, he looked like a wax statue. Now in LA, he like was played by an actual actor. So I don't know what that is supposed to mean, but hopefully we'll figure it out along the way. And this whole theme of like entertainment and being forced to entertain and like uphold certain power structures, I don't know, it felt kind of relevant because this was the week that Stephen Colbert's show got canceled. Obviously that wasn't the plan for this tour, but I thought it was an interesting coincidence, that's for sure. So that's overall what was going on. It was a storyline, basically. It seemed like there was something continuing from the Seattle show the week before. We were given signs with yay and nay written in the special language walking into the show, and there was like a vote, quote unquote, during the show, and I don't know how much I want to get into it. There were a couple of points where I'm like, this is kind of a lot. There was like a quote unquote execution at some point. I got really confused during the vote. I did not mean to vote yay. If I had been able to hear what was actually being said, I would have voted nay. And yeah, so there was that. And also like the character that the main lead singer, Gerard Way, was playing, like he clearly has been suffering a bit between shows because people were pointing out that his stage makeup has been getting more beat up over the different shows. I really loved that he kept referring to us as San Francisco, Transylvania. I thought that was a lot of fun. Vampires are a big part of their like lore and their music and all of that, so I thought that was very funny. And the band just seemed to be having like a lot of fun. We were the second show in the tour set, which I think means the energy was quite up. It seems like they're having fun at other shows too, from what I can tell. But yeah, it's just a fun time. I do like that we were early in the show listing, if that makes sense, because like now I can just kind of like follow along with what happens at future shows without getting anything spoiled for myself. Like I said, I didn't really look at any of the stuff online before going to the show because I didn't feel like I needed to, and I'm glad I didn't because like everything was just like a fun surprise. So we had so much fun singing along, dancing, all that stuff. The Black Parade is a favorite album of mine. I know pretty much every song from it, which was fun. It's also just kind of like an inspiring album. It's a rock anthem album, and like I said, it's all about like coming to terms with death. So I think that's really powerful. And then there's also just songs that are like great rock songs to dance to. Like the second track on the album, Dead, has no business being so danceable, but it is. And it is just about being dead. So feel how you want about that, but it is a lot of fun. And like the first few piano notes of Welcome to the Black Parade really hit. So, it's very nostalgic. And I think Disenchanted, which is towards the end of the album, is probably like my favorite of the like non-single songs from the album. And it was just great to like sing along, especially like with the crowd, knowing all the words, and especially like the bridge to Welcome to the Black Parade and the bridge to Famous Last Words towards the end of the album is just like a really amazing feeling. I am going to include some concert clips at the end of this, so you can totally skip those. If you have no interest in this, you could totally skip this entire plan with me if you want to, but I will include those at the very end. So yeah, there were a lot of things that happened during the Black Parade album playthrough. So they played through that entire album. I did not know they were going to do that actually until Jess mentioned it during her live stream. I was like, oh, I didn't get that. So I was very excited about that. So there's like 13 tracks on the Black Parade. Before all of that, they played the quote unquote national anthem of Draag, Draag, which is like the fictional country that this dictator is in charge of, or whatever is going on. And then that immediately led into the end, and that song, if you listen to the album, leads into Dead. So that kind of like sets the stage for the show. And then This Is How I Disappear and The Sharpest Lives are just a couple of like more heavy rock songs, I think. They're really nice. And then my husband turns to me and is like, you know what's next? And I'm like, I actually don't. I don't remember which songs go in which order on this album. And it was Welcome to the Black Parade because they started playing the iconic first few piano notes of that song. Right after that was The Vote that I got very confused by. And then after that, I Don't Love You starts playing, which as a ballad is a very sad song, I think made sense with the results of that quote unquote election. Then after that plays House of Wolves, which is another like heavy rock song. I think after that point is when this guy, this one actor who's playing like someone facilitating like the dictator's control over the band, comes in and like tries to get Gerard Way's character to do something, and Gerard Way's character's like, no, and then he gets slapped, and we're all like, boo, we were all booing. I think that was right before Cancer played, which is a very sad song. I turned to my husband and I was like, this one's so sad. And it was funny because I was watching someone's video online and she said the same thing. I could hear her saying, this is such a sad song. It is a very sad song. But then after that comes Mama, which is always, when I first heard this song, I was like, this is a lot. The first line is, if you're not familiar, Mama, we all go to hell, which is someone who was brought up religious. I'm like, I don't know about this, but now I appreciate it a lot more the older I get. There was like an extended intro played during the concert and then an extended outro played at the end. And throughout the show, at a couple really pivotal moments, they bring out this one opera singer, and she sung part of Mama, which was originally on the album sung by Liza Minnelli. So yeah. Then there was a lot of interludes between that song. There's also a lot of pyrotechnics, which was fun. I think at the end of Mama, there was like a little fire on the edge of the stage. It might have been intentional, I don't know, but someone had to come out and like extinguish it with a fire extinguisher, and we all cheered for that. Which was quite funny. Yeah, but then there was a lot of interludes between that song and Sleep, which was the next song on the album. And at some point, I think Gerard Way's character was reading some sort of comic book or something. In subsequent shows, he started reading a book to a puppet. After we went home, I'm like, with my husband, I'm like, was he dancing around with a puppet at some point? Or did I imagine that? He's like, no, there was a puppet. I'm like, okay. So yeah, then Sleep played, and then Teenagers, which is more of a rock song, I guess. And then Disenchanted had more of like a synth opening. So on the original track, it's very like acoustic, but during the show, it was kind of more synthed up, if that makes sense, which I love that song so much. So especially the lyrics to that song. And then we get to the end of the album with Famous Last Words, and that's where I was saying people like singing along, and it felt very communal. That was great. And then they did a reprise of The End, which is the first song from the album, but they brought it back at the end, and then that's where the band gets like kidnapped, ? And I guess Gerard Way's character that he's playing throughout the show gets stabbed. It's very violent. I don't really know how all of that works. Yeah. And then there's a lot of other violent stuff that happens at the end. And then the stage goes dark, and that's the first half of the show. So there's that. There was a cellist in between sets where the band's getting out of their Black Parade outfits and into their more like My Chemical Romance outfits, because yeah, I guess the Black Parade and My Chemical Romance are obviously two different bands. They're not possibly the same people, right? So yeah, her name was Clarice Jensen. She played for about like 10 minutes while they got changed and rested and all that stuff. So there was that. That was very nice. It was a nice interlude. And then they had a B stage that was a smaller, rounder stage in front of the main stage. And that set, I originally thought like, oh, it was really like Danger Days heavy, which is their, I believe, 2010 album. It was the last full album they put out before breaking up. And then I did the math, and there were like 4 songs from Danger Days, 4 songs from 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, and then like a handful of other songs from other things like B-sides and stuff like that. So I knew a lot more of the songs from the San Francisco set list than from the Seattle set list, so that was good for me. There were a few that I didn't know, and now they're like some of my favorite songs. Is this out of focus? I am so sorry. It's really hard with the coil. Sometimes the camera focuses on that instead of the planner. So the first song they opened with was Thank You for the Venom, which is from Revenge, and I didn't really know that song at first, but I do really enjoy it now. And then they got into I'm Not Okay, which is a great one to scream with people. And then at some point, Gerard Way was like, we're going to play a really special song right now. And then they got into Summertime, which is just a really cute, like, summer love song. It's a little more pop, so I like it. It's cute. Singing it with my husband was very cute. And then they got into Na 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 Na, Na 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 Na. I don't know how many nas are technically in the title, but you can go count if you really care, which is, I can't decide if it's supposed to be a nonsense song or if there's something else going on there that I could analyze. Like, I feel like there might be something there, but it's a very upbeat, danceable song. Then they did It's Not a Fashion Statement, It's a Fucking Death Wish. This is where we get into the language part of my warning from earlier. Also a song I didn't really know that much before, but now I really enjoy listening to it. Then they did Sing. Not my favorite song. It's like the one song from Danger Days that I'm like, whatever about. But I knew it. My husband likes it. And then at some point, Gerard Way was like, okay, I had a religious experience with this song during the pandemic. And after hearing it, I was like, didn't we all? Because it was Bullet with Butterfly Wings by Smashing Pumpkins. And if you're like me and you didn't know that was the name of that song, it is the I'm Still Just a Rat in a Cage song. Okay? So now you know. I didn't know. But once I heard the chorus, I was like, oh, this is that song. So that slapped. Then they did Boy Division, which I don't think is from an album. I think it was from like an album they scrapped and then released a few tracks from later. And I thought that was very appropriate for California because, while we don't need another song about California, which is I think it was like an iTunes exclusive song they released. That song does talk about like, what is it? Sing a song for California. Or Say a Prayer for California. So I thought that was good for a California show. And then they went into Helena, which I have a lot of attachment to because in kind of like the end of 2019, my friend invited us to go do karaoke, and the last song we all did together was that song. And I was like reading the lyrics, I'm like, I don't know this song. And I couldn't recognize the words at first when we were doing karaoke. And then we get to the chorus. I'm like, oh, it's that song. Okay, now I know what we're doing. And then also, if you were following me earlier this year or earlier this summer, my sisters danced to the Vitamin String Quartet cover of that song earlier this year. So I have a lot of attachment to it now. And then they ended on The Kids from Yesterday, which again was like the one song from Danger Days I didn't know. And now I'm obsessed with it. And I loved it as a closer for the evening. Like it's very like cinematic is how I would describe it. It's very nostalgic. Like I just love it. It's really nice. And so I wish I knew it before I went to the show. Before I go to a concert, I do try to listen to as much of a band's discography as possible, but sometimes it's just I don't have the time. It's not possible. So I'm sad that I didn't take a clip of Kids from Yesterday or like know the words to it because I just really love it. But sometimes it is also just good to listen to a song. And I find through shows, I often gain new favorite songs because I like to make a Spotify playlist after the show, and how I generate that is through setlist.fm because I often don't know every single song that a band plays, so I need some help. So people are great and compile all of that, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, it was just a great time. Gerard Way, I did not really know what his voice sounded like until this day. He has kind of at least this night, he had a very like giggly, kooky laugh. He was very giddy this night and kept making jokes. And at some point, he started talking in his quote unquote Transylvanian accent. He's like, wait, I'm still stuck in the other character instead of like myself. He like asked them to like shine the stage lights up on us in the stands for a little bit. And he was like, look at you. So that was very cute. And he's like, I'm going to be lame and talk about the weather for a little bit because we were in San Francisco, which in the summer is still cooler. And he's like, the weather's really nice here. Like, you know, in LA, it's just hot. And like, I think everywhere else they're going in the US this year is like very warm in the summer. So San Francisco, I feel, is a good climate for vampires, as well as for dressing up in very jacket heavy outfits, which is like what the Black Parade is. Like they wear jackets, and like I wore my faux leather jacket. My husband wore like all black. So I'm glad we went in San Francisco because of that, because it's like anywhere else wearing all black in the summer is just not a good time, but this was great. I'm so excited. I got to use my little Molly marching band sticker. I bought these and then I haven't been able to use any of them yet. So I marked that here with for Long Live the Black Parade. I also did a little checklist to mark my 3 favorite songs at the time from the B stage. So I wrote in I'm Not Okay, Summertime, and Helena, because at the time of the show, at least, those were my favorites. These still are some of my favorites, but there are other moments that I didn't get to write in that were really important. And then the little concert cat from Sweet It Was Paper, that was just to mark San Francisco, Transylvania, because he kept saying that, and I thought it was really funny. I feel like San Francisco and Los Angeles, being from California, like, those work with the Transylvania name. So anyway, so yeah, Gerard Way was a hoot, and like the other band members just seemed to be having a really good time too. Like they were very smiley, so that was nice to see that they were having a good time. And it seems like amongst all of the shows so far, the consistent B stage songs are I'm Not Okay, Na 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 Na, and Helena, and then everything else is kind of different. And then obviously the first half of the show, they play through the entirety of the Black Parade. So what else can I say? I wish I knew more of the words to Na 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 before the show, because afterwards I'm like, I feel like there's something going on here that I should pay more attention to. And it is a very danceable song. It's just a very fun, weird song. And yeah, so I am revisiting that a lot more. And as far as like Helena goes, I'm just kind of jumping around in my notes now, sorry. On the drive to San Francisco, we obviously, my husband and I had a lot of time to talk, especially when we were stuck in traffic. I think I was saying, do you want my Welcome to the Black Parade played at your funeral one day? Because this is where we're at in our relationship after being together for almost 13 years. Or like, what do you want to have played? Because like we've already talked about like how we're getting buried one day or something, which I think is an important thing to talk about with your spouse. It's uncomfy, but like we are all going to die someday. Like that is the one thing we all have in common. So and my husband's way more comfortable with it than I am. I'm still very undecided about a lot of things. Anyway, morbid, but thematic. So he's like, I kind of want Helena played at my funeral. I'm like, okay, you got it. So I know exactly how he wants to be buried. I know what music we're playing. And then I was also like, so what are we serving at your funeral? And he's like, maybe like gumbo. I'm like, yeah, we could do that. We could do that. I have no answers to any of these things. You all are allowed to dance to Dead by My Chemical Romance at my funeral someday. If you happen to be there, just, you can do that. I'm fine. It's fine. I will in fact be dead at that point. Sorry if that's weird, but like I said, it's the one thing we all cannot escape. So might as well have a sense of humor about it at some point. And then I think I can just close on saying I had a really amazing time at this concert. It's probably the most fun I've had at a concert so far, probably because it was more of a rock show. And I'm living, I am thriving on watching what happens at the next shows. I was also really surprised by like the variety of age ranges at the show. Like I was expecting it to be like pure millennial, maybe like a little bit of younger Gen X. There were a lot of like Gen Z kids there, or at least they looked Gen Z. And I know some of like the millennial and quote unquote elder emos are like offended by Gen Z fans. I don't care. Like I welcome it, and I'm a newer fan of this band anyway. Like I've been listening to them for like the last 10 years. But like I wasn't an original fan, and I don't want to be left out, so I'm not going to tell Gen Z that they're wrong to listen to it or to obsess over certain parts of the quote unquote lore and all this stuff. So yeah, the Gen Z fans, I will say, really enjoyed the opener, 100 Gex. I don't think it was the music for me, but I did think the band members seemed like really nice people and had a good sense of humor. So we'll end on that. Thanks so much for listening to me geek out about My Chemical Romance. It's kind of my obsession at the moment musically. I hope you are having a good week. I will insert some concert clips here if you would like to view those, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!
He said, suddenly, you go, let me hear you. Of the broken, the beaten, and the down. Because one day, I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer, to drive the black parade. We can do this. We can do this. 1, 2, 3. Everybody move. I see an oval. Everybody in the hopeless, hopeless. Everybody in the hopeless, hopeless. Mama, we all go to hell. Mama, we all go to hell. I'm writing this letter and wishing you well. Mama, we all go to hell. 2, 3, 4, 1. late or it's sad, 'cause I see you